Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a landmark decision that will be studied for years to come, the United States Supreme Court has struck down the sweeping tariff regime enacted by former President Donald Trump, sending shockwaves through the corridors of power in Washington and across the globe. This historic ruling fundamentally alters the landscape of global trade, upending years of economic policy and reshaping the way nations interact in the world marketplace. By challenging the limits of presidential authority, the court has set a new precedent that will have far-reaching consequences for American businesses, consumers, and the very fabric of international commerce. The decision dismantles the administration's broad use of emergency powers to impose tariffs on goods from around the world, a move that had sparked fierce debate and legal battles since its inception. Now tens of billions of dollars in collected tariffs hang in the balance, with the federal government facing the daunting prospect of issuing massive refunds to importers and businesses affected by the tariffs. For many businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, this ruling could mean the difference between survival and bankruptcy, as they grapple with the financial fallout and uncertainty that lies ahead. For policymakers and lawmakers, it signals the dawn of a new era, one filled with both uncertainty and opportunity, as they navigate the complex realities of global economics and domestic priorities. Tonight, we'll take you inside the legal battle that led to this moment, examine the economic implications for industries and workers, and consider how this decision will shape America's role on the world stage for years to come. This is a story about power, money, and the enduring principles that define a nation's future, one that will echo through boardrooms, courtrooms, and households across the country. To understand today's ruling, we must go back to early 2025, when the Trump administration invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEP, to declare a national emergency. Originally aimed at drug trafficking, this move allowed the president to bypass Congress and impose tariffs unilaterally, a controversial use of a law designed for targeted sanctions, not sweeping trade policy. The administration argued that modern threats required swift executive action, but critics warned this set a dangerous precedent, granting unchecked authority to the White House. The legal justification hinged on interpreting IEPA's language to include tariffs as a tool of national security. This opened the door to a much broader application, sending shockwaves through businesses and America's allies. What began as a targeted measure quickly became the foundation for a far-reaching and destabilizing trade policy. By the spring of 2025, the administration took a dramatic step, expanding its emergency powers to address the growing U.S. trade deficit. This move gave the president sweeping authority to impose tariffs on nearly any country, for almost any reason, at any time. The policy was justified as a way to protect American interests, but it also sparked immediate controversy and uncertainty across the nation. Suddenly, the rules of global commerce seemed to change overnight, leaving businesses and trading partners scrambling to adapt. Tariffs soared to unprecedented heights, with some rates reaching up to 50%. The average U.S. tariff rate climbed to levels not seen since the 1930s, evoking memories of the Great Depression and the trade wars of the past. For many, it felt like history was repeating itself, but with even higher stakes in a globalized world. American importers found themselves paying nearly $90 billion in new tariffs within months. These costs were rarely absorbed by businesses alone. Instead, they were often passed directly to consumers through higher prices on everyday goods, from electronics to clothing and groceries. The impact rippled through the economy, touching nearly every household. The country quickly became deeply divided. Supporters of the tariffs, including many factory workers and industry advocates, saw them as a bold way to protect American jobs and revive struggling industries. They argued that the new policies would finally level the playing field and restore lost manufacturing might. But opponents, ranging from small business owners to multinational corporations, condemned the tariffs as a destructive tax that threatened their survival. Many warned that the sudden spike in costs would force layoffs, shutter businesses, and make American products less competitive abroad. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent became the public face of the policy, championing it as a necessary defense of national interests. Yet business leaders like Rick Woldenberg described the tariffs as a massive burden, disrupting supply chains, stalling investments, and putting thousands of livelihoods at risk. The debate grew more heated with each passing week. As frustration mounted, a broad coalition of opponents, including business groups, legal experts and state officials, joined forces to challenge the administration's authority in court. The legal battle promised to be fierce, with both sides preparing for a showdown that could reshape the nation's economic future. The stakes were clear. At issue was not just the future of American trade policy, but the very balance of power between Congress and the president. The outcome would determine who truly held the reins of economic policy in the United States. The tariff war had escalated into a full-blown constitutional crisis, with the eyes of the nation and the world watching to see what would happen next. The legal battle over tariffs quickly escalated to a fight over the separation of powers. Challengers argued that only Congress has the authority to impose tariffs, and that EPA was never meant to grant the president such sweeping power. They pointed out that the law doesn't mention tariffs, and was intended for targeted sanctions, not nationwide tax regimes. The administration, led by Solicitor General John Sauer, insisted that emergencies required executive agility, and that EPA's broad language justified their actions. 3 federal courts sided with the challengers, ruling the president had overstepped. Undeterred, the administration appealed, pushing the case to the Supreme Court. The outcome would determine not just the fate of the tariffs, but the limits of presidential power for generations. In November 2025, the Supreme Court convened for one of the most closely watched hearings in recent memory. The courtroom was packed to capacity, with top government officials, legal scholars, and members of the press all in attendance, eager to witness a pivotal moment in constitutional law. Outside, crowds gathered and news cameras rolled, capturing the sense of anticipation and gravity that surrounded the proceedings. Justices from both sides of the ideological spectrum expressed deep skepticism about the administration's claim to unchecked tariff authority. Their pointed questions reflected a rare unity of concern over the potential consequences for the balance of power between the branches of government. Chief Justice Roberts pressed the government's attorney, asking whether the president could truly impose tariffs on any product, from any country, for any reason, without any meaningful oversight from Congress. His questions underscored the stakes. Could a single office wield such sweeping economic power? Justice Gorsuch, echoing concerns from his colleagues, doubted that Congress ever intended to surrender its constitutional authority over trade and tariffs. He questioned the historical context and legislative intent behind the law at issue. Solicitor General Sauer faced a barrage of tough questions, not only about the difference between tariffs and taxes, but also about whether the administration was effectively bypassing Congress's exclusive power to regulate commerce. The justices pressed for clear answers, highlighting the complexity and significance of the case. Throughout the hearing, the justices returned again and again to the text of the law and the structure of the Constitution. Their questions cast doubt on the administration's arguments, suggesting that the separation of powers was at the very heart of the dispute. The challengers, representing businesses and trade groups, found a receptive audience. They emphasized that Congress never intended to give the president such sweeping power over tariffs, warning that unchecked authority could set a dangerous precedent for future administrations. While the practical dilemma of refunding billions in tariffs loomed large, the core issue remained clear: who truly holds the power to tax and regulate trade in America? The outcome of this historic hearing could reshape the boundaries of executive and legislative authority for years to come. The Supreme Court delivered a decisive ruling against the Trump administration, declaring its use of IEEPA to impose broad tariffs unconstitutional. The majority opinion reaffirmed that only Congress can levy taxes and regulate trade on such a scale. The absence of the word tariff in EPA was critical. The court found the law was never meant to authorize sweeping trade measures. The decision invalidates the tariffs, affirms lower court rulings, and sets a clear precedent limiting future presidents' use of emergency powers in trade. While the president retains some authority under other trade laws, IEEPA can no longer be used as a shortcut for unilateral action. This ruling is a landmark check on executive power and a victory for the constitutional balance of government. The Supreme Court's decision has triggered immediate and far-reaching economic consequences. The federal government now faces the daunting task of refunding over $90 billion in unlawful tariffs to thousands of importers. For businesses like Sarah Wells Bags, the ruling offers hope for recovery and growth after months of financial strain. The removal of tariffs could ease supply chain pressures and lower costs, but the sudden change injects uncertainty into the market. Companies must quickly adapt, recalibrating strategies and investments in a shifting policy landscape. Trade experts warn that the administration still has other, slower tools for imposing tariffs, so the fight over trade policy is far from over. The economic aftershocks will continue as the nation adjusts to this new reality. The path forward is uncertain, but the era of emergency-driven tariffs is over. The Supreme Court's verdict has sparked strong reactions nationwide. Business leaders like Rick Woldenberg celebrate the decision as a victory for the rule of law and economic stability, eager to reinvest refunded tariffs. Supporters of the tariffs, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, decry the ruling as a blow to American sovereignty and vow to pursue alternative measures. Labor unions worry about renewed foreign competition, while industries reliant on imports anticipate relief. For consumers, lower prices may be on the horizon, but change will take time to ripple through supply chains. Politically, the decision is hailed as a rebuke of executive overreach and a win for checks and balances, but it also fuels partisan debate. The ruling will shape the political landscape and trade policy debates for years to come. The Supreme Court's decision marks the start of a new chapter for U.S. trade policy and constitutional governance. The government must now manage the complex process of refunding billions and restoring order to trade policy. Businesses face a turbulent transition, but also an opportunity to rebuild supply chains and invest for the future. The focus now shifts from legal battles to policymaking, as Congress and the White House are challenged to craft a sustainable, bipartisan trade strategy. The world is watching to see if America can lead with stability and predictability in global commerce. This moment reaffirms the strength of the nation's founding principles, checks and balances, the rule of law, and democratic deliberation. The future of global trade is uncertain, but the constitutional foundation is stronger than ever.